Let's talk Star Citizen and Cyberpunk 2077, two games intertwined unofficially. First of all, let me hack this guy right here and make him detonate a grenade from his own inventory as part of my stealthy playthrough. Look at these particle effects. Beautiful. There is so much beauty and attention to detail in this game. You can see the love and devotion that the devs have put into every square inch. Look at the details on these weapons. This weapon wall, probably my favorite place in the game. Look at the details on this gold gun right here. Isn't that spectacular? In fact, the weapon models must be some of the best I've seen in any recent game at all. The one thing I'm missing that Star Citizen does is it allows you to inspect the weapon in your hand. Not so in Cyberpunk. Now, there's a lot of things that Cyberpunk and Star Citizen have in common. For example, both games announced in 2012. Both games beginning from small studios. Now, I say small for Cyberpunk. CD Projekt Red, at the time which they announced Cyberpunk, had 50 staff members. This has since grown to 500, and according to Wikipedia, this game cost $317 million to produce. Sound familiar to you? Check out this handsome fellow right here. It's like looking in the mirror. Some of the biggest criticism that Star Citizen has received is, one, why is it taking so long? And two, why is it so expensive? Well, by what metric do we have to compare it? What other modern game has come out that we can compare Squadron 42 and Star Citizen to? Well, now we have that metric. We have Cyberpunk. And seeing what they put out after 8 years of development and $300 million with a studio of 500, this is what they did. And it is spectacular. Look at the world they have created. I am very excited for multiplayer when that finally does come along. Again, like Star Citizen, Squadron 42 being the single player game, the PU obviously being the multiplayer part. The world they've created in Cyberpunk is probably the most impressive I have seen since GTA came out. Now, there's a lot of comparisons to make with GTA itself, but Cyberpunk aimed to surpass it, and they did. Speaking of comparisons to GTA, let's take a quick trip out here to a scenic point. I wanted to point something out, and while I am aware of the complaints, I'm aware of all the negative press that Cyberpunk has received, I can speak from my experience and from the people I've spoken to that have played on PC that we have not had the game-breaking bugs. We have had minimal bugs. In fact, I hardly had any bugs. And the one rare time there was an issue, saving the game, loading back in, solved whatever the issue was. Take a moment to look at the amount of love and attention they put into the scene. Now, you'd drive past the scene in a second and not pay attention, but if you stop and look around, as I have done so many times in this game, you get to appreciate the attention to detail, the light, the fog, the particle effects, the amount of love that the devs put into creating this very scene right over here. But then, if you just look down, what's going on there? And you can feel the frustrations that the devs had when their board of directors and investors said, get this game out now, because you know they didn't want those 2D sprites out there as cars. You know the devs wanted to iterate and improve upon what GTA 5 did. It's impossible that they looked at this and said, this is it, this is wonderful, this is how we want our traffic to look. From a distance, yeah, it works. But you know that the GTA 5 players are going to be zooming in going, what the hell is that? That doesn't seem right. But this is what happens when you have to push a game out. This is what happens when your investors, when your board of directors say, yeah, whatever state you're in, December is our last deadline, this game comes out in December. And it did. For the most part, actually for the most of it, the game is great. And I do feel the pain of the console players who were unable to enjoy and looking forward to the game as much as we were, but then weren't able to enjoy it like we did. It is painful. Another scene which I think they put so much attention into is Afterlife, which is one of the main clubs in the game. No spoilers here. But I don't have an RTX card. I'm running on a measly 1080 Ti. But with RTX on, can you imagine what this scene looks like? Now, I've seen screenshots. It looks spectacular. The graffiti on the walls, the procedural engine they used to create this is so impressive. You will not find the same graffiti, and I've looked. I've looked on walls, under bridges, everywhere. You don't see the same graffiti twice. Every single spot with graffiti is different. That kind of attention to detail blows me away. So the downside here, and how I wanted to compare this to Star Citizen, is that in the chairman's letter, which I mentioned in the previous video, we were told that Squadron 42, there's no new information, it'll be done when it's done, and everyone is thinking, what the hell? Well, what the hell indeed, but if a game needs polish, if you are 90%, look at this monorail by the way, do you see that? It just disappeared. Not a huge deal. But when you are playing a game which is supposed to be the most immersive in years and that happens, it kind of throws you off. It kind of shows you that the polish isn't there. And that's the one thing missing from Cyberpunk, is that they needed, I don't know if it's 6 months or a year, but they needed the extra time for the polish. I know there's a joke or pun in there for the word Polish and polish. I will probably think of it once this video is done. You can post it below if you do get it. But if they were just given the extra time, this game would have been, instead of an 8.5 from me, a full 11 out of 10, because that's how good I feel this game is and could have been if it had the extra dev time. With that in mind, if Squadron 42, let's say Squadron 42 is 70-80% done, how much time do they need for polish? For example, right here, this is the NCART, or the mass transit system. This doesn't show on a map as a fast travel point, but it is. You can see there's even a timer there counting down to when the next train comes. A train doesn't exist. You know the devs were planning a transit system where you can get on the train, jump around, and go where you need to instead of using fast travel. I fully suspect that fast travel was thrown in at the last minute because they just couldn't get the transit system here completed in time, which is a damn shame. It really would have completed a lot of immersion in the game. After putting roughly closing in on 200 hours in on Cyberpunk, I gotta say that I do understand and am more appreciative of why Squadron 42 is taking long. It doesn't mean I'm not frustrated by the delays. I am. But I do understand that that little bit of polish at the end of it can make all the difference. The vehicles in the distance, the transit system, the monorail simply disappearing out of existence for no reason. These are small things. They don't make the game bad, but they are small little things which just, if they worked, would have made the game so much better. So Cyberpunk coming out in the state it did makes me appreciate, for one, that Squadron 42, while delayed and extreme frustrating, is taking the time to put on those finishing touches. At the same time, I do wish that they do give us finally some sort of date on Squadron 42, because it can't go on indefinitely the way they are doing it. And with that, I just gotta say that if you have not purchased Cyberpunk, or if the game does interest you, by all means jump in. If you do have a PC that can run it, it'll work very well. But if you're gonna wait around for the first DLC, because that experience will be magical. By the time the first DLC drops, the game will be polished, everything will be running smoothly, the patches will be in, and you'll have the extra content. I am jealous of the experience you will have when that happens. So I want to know, guys, post below. Have you played Cyberpunk? What are your thoughts? This is PC players, console players, I know your thoughts. And let me know what you feel and how relevant this is to Squadron 42's development based upon what we've seen with the Cyberpunk release. Does waiting for Squadron 42 make it worthwhile, or is Squadron 42 really stretching your patience like it is for many of us? Your comments below appreciated. If you enjoy my content, give me a thumbs up, and I guess I'm gonna detonate the guy's grenade once again. You saw this in the start. I'll catch you in the next one.